that season of Advent. I mean, it is the season where we launch our church year. The reality is we live in a society that's already celebrating Christmas and already launched into that whole thing that's coming. But as a church, we wait. And we wait for this time of preparation, this time of the second coming of Christ. And as we read our gospel passage a minute ago, some of you are going, what's he going to do with that one? And the reality is that we are waiting for the second coming of Christ. Christ has died, Christ has risen, and Christ will come again. And so we're in this time of preparation. And does anybody really know what time it is? Does anyone really care? O come, Emmanuel. O come, Emmanuel. And ransom captive Israel. Reality is we wait for this second of coming, and we wait for the coming of Christ. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive, not just Israel, but ransom captive Ron, Sally, Fred. You can insert your own name. Because we all need a sense of awaiting, a sense of coming. You know, the waiting for a baby is not very predictable. I hate to tell you. Those of you that have grandchildren, or you can remember the birth of your children, it's not very predictable. There's the kick, there's the nausea, there's the plump belly swelling, and it just wait. And we wait, and we wait. And then we make trips to the hospital that might be preeminent strikes, that we go to the hospital and nothing is actually coming. So we go back home. And we wait. And we wait. Living in a constant state of readiness is difficult, isn't it? A constant state of readiness. We wait with expectancy, but the reality is a society, we push time. And that's why in the middle of October, right after Halloween, Christmas decorations are adorning every store you go into. And God bless us all, Christmas music begins to get played. How are we to await the birth of a Savior? How are we to await the birth of a Savior? Are we to wait on our knees with our bags packed, cars gassed, with our eyes on the horizon looking for hope? Because during Advent, that's what we do. We have our eyes on the horizon looking for hope. The first coming was predicted. Or was it? I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about, if the world was waiting for Jesus to come and it was predicted that it was going to happen in a certain time, I have some questions. Shouldn't Mary and Joseph have made reservations in Bethlehem? They knew they were going, right? Shouldn't they have made reservations? Did they not calculate the time it would take to ride the donkey? He didn't have a flat tire. And they got there late. Shouldn't they have calculated that just a little bit better? They were late, it was dark, it was chilly. And what about that new baby blanket that Mary's mom made? Did they forget it? Swaddling clothes for a king? So where was that baby blanket? And to be honest with you, the second coming will not be very predictable. We do not know the time, we do not know the place, but we look at the signs. We are not accustomed to talking about the second coming of Christ because the reality is we all want comfort and joy. But can there be comfort and joy as deconstruction occurs and all things are made new? Because when Christ comes again, that which we know will be deconstructed. It will not be the way that we think it is. Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel. The gospel today in Matthew 24, 29 through 44 indicates it's a time when Jesus will come again. And it's apocalyptic in nature. Things are going to end. It's a precarious time of life and nature of life where two will be in the field and one will be taken and the other one won't be. It'll happen quick. And one will be grinding mill and the other one will be grinding mill, but yet one will be taken and one won't. We're all moving along towards an ending. And this all seems to be so frightening that there will be an ending. We like our God to be in the construction business, don't we? Fixing things and making things, creating, but we're not sure what to do when a God reduces. When a God reduces possibly things for the good, because when the second coming comes, things will be reduced. Are we ready for a God that will deconstruct and take things apart for our own good? Let me ask you a question. Has God ever taken things apart for you and you absolutely hated it? But looking back, there was good as things were deconstructed, as things were taken apart, as things were coming to an ending where there possibly was a new beginning that had more hope than we were living. Jesus says, I am making all things new. What does that mean for us? What does that mean for us that he is making all things new as he comes again? William Willimon says this: the difference between bad news and good news depends on where you're standing at the moment. Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? Come, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel. We live in a very complicated world. I don't know if you figured that out. It's a very complicated world, which there is so much wrong and so much worse than when that baby Jesus came into the manger. Things are more complicated. Things are more wild than that silent night, that holy night where all was calm and all was bright. That time might indicate a period where things were quite awful. The level of chaos in today's world seems to pale in existence to the times that have gone by. Today's chaos is so widespread in every country, every language, every people, contains chaos and calamity, wars, famines, poverty, homelessness, helplessness. A world where power is brokered by bullying, reducing others for one's own personal elevation, a world where children are sold as a commodity of pleasure, a world where the mundane is stimulated and titillated so the senses that we might feel more alive, to live a life that is more a dream than a reality. We live in a complicated world, dear friends, much more complicated than that time when Jesus came into the world for the first time, a world where people are experiencing sensory overload and psychological denial, reducing life and outlook. A world where chemicals are used to dull and din the chaos that overstimulates our senses. A world where babies are in strollers, watching little screens, stimulating their brains in levels that they cannot even begin to comprehend. A world where the privileged exceed without fulfillment of identity or purpose. A world where the marginalized is further reduced, seeking to try to find a voice and find a purpose. We live in a very complicated world. Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Myrtle Beach. What might need to change in your heart, in our homes, in our community, to make the habitation ready for the coming of a king? Might something need to be dismantled in our own personal life as we wait for the coming of the king, to make room for the babe that will lie in a manger? Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive. Fill in the blank.